Another hour passed, yet the party was still in full swing. The crowd was wild. Jungkook was at the center of attention, drawing shots one after another. His charm and confidence were on full display, drawing cheers and chants from the crowd, especially the girls who seemed to be memorized by his every move. She watched from the sideline with a done expression, already thinking about the challenge of getting him home later. She is regretting it, coming here and the damn party is not coming to an end. Encouraging him to keep the drinks coming. Come on, Jungkook, show us what you got tonight. Yeah man, another one. You're the king tonight. Jungkook laughed and lifted another shot glass, only for you guys. He shouted over the noise before downing another shot, his face flushed with alcohol. The topic of conversation changing from drinks to girls, as all of them ogling like they have never seen a girl before. Damn immature hormonal kids. Cook looked at the one with the red dress, smoking hot. His friends were pointing at, but there was no interest in it. For once he found his attention waning. None of the party girls seemed to spark any interest in him. It was not like he flirted around, though he really is famous for his charms. He just had to pass a smile, and the girls would be blushing mess in front of him, except for the one. Suddenly he felt the piercing gaze on him. Turning to find its source, his eyes met hers. There she was, looking right at him. She looked damn mad. Her eyes bore into him with an intensity that caught him off guard. He raised an eyebrow at her, but she merely scoffed and looked away. What was that? He stared at her, chugging down one more shot, but she didn't pay any attention to him. Yoon gripped the edge of seat tightly. The whole night fell off to her, and she couldn't quite put her finger on why. The multitude of feelings she was experiencing towards Jungkook was unsettling. Earlier, she helped him sneak out of the house, and surprisingly, she enjoyed their brief daring kiss. It was a rush, something she had not expected to feel, and certainly not with him. And then there was this new uncomfortable feeling, jealousy. She watched how girls were eyeing him, laughing at his jog and paying over his attention. She was jealous, and the realization hit her hard. Why? Why was she feeling this way? They were supposed to be enemies, weren't they? But her heart seemed to have other ideas. They don't like each other, right? But her emotions were all over the place tonight. She looked back at him and her eyes widened as Jungkook raised yet another oversized glass to his lips, ready to chuck it down in one go, and she had enough seen today. She walked over and snatched the glass from his hand. He scowled at the sudden interruption, his expression turning one of the invitation at his snapped, his gaze toward the person who interrupted. What? She glared at him. Come with me, I want to talk. She stated, tugging at his wrist to emphasize her point. Place as his posture slack. He was clearly wasted. He whined in protest, his voice slurred. Why now? I'm having fun. You have had enough fun. Let's go. Her grip tightened on his wrist, pulling him to his feet. But I don't want to go. He stumbled slightly, leaning on her more than he probably realized. He continued to whine like a child. You're going to have a horrible hangover. And honestly, you are making a fool of yourself, she said, dragging him away from the party and out of the club. Standing in front of the main door, her face was set in a deep scowl. Her arm was wrapped around his waist to support his staggering steps, while his head resting onto her shoulder. His condition was worse than she thought at the party. He was completely out of it. Damn it, Jungkook, she muttered under her breath. She heaved a sigh, half dragging, half carrying him across the threshold. Can you try to stand for 2 minutes straight? We're almost there. She fumbled with the door lock and finally creaked the door open so no one can catch them. It was already middle of the night, and if someone caught them, it won't end good. Jungkook was mumbling something which she didn't pay attention until he leaned in closer, planting a sloppy kiss on her neck, catching her completely off guard. Jungkook, behave, she exclaimed, pushing him slightly away from her. He stumbled on his feet, which she instantly caught him by his shirt. Meanie. He mumbled in her neck, and oh, she wanted to throw him on the floor. Stop it. We need to get you to the bed. Stop fooling around. Out a low chuckle, still in his, barely acknowledging her frustration. You are cute when you are mad. I won't look cute when I will choke you to the death. She warned him only to hurt another giggle. Didn't know you were in that kind of stuff. Yeah, so funny. She rolled her eyes mentally. And they made their way up to the stair. They missed the presence of another person who was watching them with disappointed eyes. Yun practically dragged him towards the bed. Her energy nearly died. Oh, here we are. Get in the bed. His legs seemed to give out just as she managed to swing him towards the edge of the bed. He collapsed onto it with a heavy thud, still grinning up like a child who managed to get away with mischief. You don't look pretty when you are all bossy, he murmured, reaching out to tug gently at her hand, trying to pull her down next to him. She slapped his hand away, placing her hand on her hip as she looked down at him. You better remember this in the morning. He just grinned. She rolled her eyes and started to walk away. His hand shot out, clasped around her wrist. He tugged lightly, pulling her back toward the edge of the bed. Where are you going? To change my clothes? You look good like this. Stay beside me, he murmured, pouting a little. She felt a smile threatening to break through her lips. Seeing him pouting and whining, she had the urge to take the pictures of him, knowing full well how embarrassed he would be when he saw how he'd behave in his drunken state. Jungkook, get back to sleep, you need rest. He pouted before his eyes started to close. He tried hard to keep them open but couldn't, and eventually she heard his soft snores. She shook her head, adjusted his blanket. He looked so different when asleep, almost innocent. She caught herself smiling and abruptly slapped her head. What is wrong with me today? The next morning, both of them were standing in the kitchen, looking visibly nervous. Their hands were behind their back, fingers anxiously twiddling as they were school children about to get scolded by the principal. However, it was not a principal they were facing. It was Mr. June, who stood before them with an unreadable expression that only heightened their anxiety. Both of them kept their head bowed, almost out of guilt, as they waited for their scolding. Care to explain? Where were you two last night? And they both didn't have answer, just looking down in guilt. I'm asking something, kids. Dad, we were just out for studying. That was an awful lie. Oh, for a study. Does your book have whiskey too that you both were wasted? Both of their heads snapped up to him but quickly settled back on the ground when they saw how sternly he was looking at them. I will ask again, where were you two? Club, she muttered the word, her voice barely above a whisper, and she did not meet his gaze. Wine, Dad, it was not her fault. Jungkook, I don't want to hear anything from you. Jungkook quickly shut his mouth, looking down. First, you are grounded. And you know why you are grounded? Because your finals are looming and you are failing tests. Then you have the audacity to sneak out and drag Van with you. I agreed to go with him, she murmured, both of them unconsciously defending each other. He looked at her a little surprised. I'm disappointed. Both of you are lying to us. How long it's been going on? It was just yesterday, sir. I expected better from both of you. This is not just about going to a club, it's about responsibility and trust. How can I trust you if you lie about where you are? I'm sorry, we should have told you the truth. It won't happen again. Yes, Dad, we will be careful next time. I won't happen again. He ended up repeating her words. Mr. June sighed, rubbing his forehead. Okay, I'll forgive you. But you know, there is always a consequence of your actions. Yes, until your exams are over, you both on a tight leash. No more outings, curfew are set earlier, and expect daily reports on your study, understood? Yes, sir. Since I see that distractions might be a problem, he said, his gaze fixed on Jungkook but implicating both of them. You both will stay in separate rooms until then. His eyes widened in surprise as he stared at his dad like his candy just got snatched. Van bit her lips. You two get it? He asked, ensuring his point was clear. Yes, sir. Come on now, let's have a breakfast. He said, don't more suffer now. They both glanced at each other before quietly following Mr. June towards the dining table. Why are you packing all these clothes for? You are not going to come back or something? He narrowed his eyes, observing the amount of clothes she was stuffing in her bag. We are going to stay separately for almost 4 weeks, a whole month, so I need to take everything. But it's not like you are moving out. We are still in the same house, just different rooms. I know, but it makes sense to have all my stuff with me. It will be easier than running back and forth between rooms for things I might need. He sighed, running a hand through his hair as he watched her. Does Dad really have to do this? It's too much. It's your fault, you know. Alright, because you were just an innocent in all this. She zipped her suitcase with a forceful pull, standing upright to face him. Because I am. If you had a bit of self-control over yourself and not chugging shots like there was no tomorrow, we wouldn't be in this mess. And it's not even about the room, Jungkook. Do you even understand the embarrassment I feel in front of your dad? The disappointment in his eyes, and that was not directed towards you, but it was directed towards me too. He closed his eyes, harshly ruffling his hair. Don't start again, okay? I already have enough lectures for today, and my head is still itching. Good, that's what you deserve, she said, turning around with her luggage, and he paused, watching her move towards the door. His frustration and headache made him he wanted to avoid further confrontation, but her last words stung more than he wanted to admit. Now you are being mean. You are not as innocent as you appear, so don't you dare to put blame everything on me. He turned to him, glaring at him. You better shut your mouth before I really lose my temper. Jungkook crossed his arms as he met her gaze squarely. Maybe Dad decided best for us. At least I don't have to hear your voice anymore. His words were sharp, intended to provoke her. Like I wanted to live in the same room as you. It's relief for me that I'm going to have my own room. Yeah, no one going to miss you in this room anyway. Except for the cockroaches and few lizards here and there. Enjoy your new roommates then. I'm sure you have about lots in common. You too. Don't miss me too much, sweetheart. She left the room, closing the door a bit more tightly. He stood alone, the smirk fading from his face. The room felt emptier suddenly. This is going to be weirder than I thought. Jungkook leaned back against the wall, his eyes glued to the screen of his friend's phone as they scrolled through the videos and pictures from the club night. This was his only way to catch up on how widely their actions were circulating. The pictures and clips were fueling the rumors and gossip that had not died down since that night. Watching those moments replayed, he felt proud. How he and Yun had become the talk of the school. His gaze drifted across the schoolyard to where Van was surrounded by her own group of friends. Biting his lips unconsciously, he stared at her. His thoughts drifted dangerously into the territory that, if voiced out loud, would certainly doom him. They were far from innocent. Suddenly she looked up, her eyes locking with his from across the distance. She raised an eyebrow and then, knowing a smirk, curved her lips as if she had just read his thoughts. His heart raced, but he didn't look away from her. It's been 6 days. Yes, they were living separately. He had to admit it. He is actually missing her. Their continuous bickering. They both were in his father's continuous watch, and even if he wanted to, he couldn't talk to her freely. It looked so painfully boring. The irony of the situation was not lost on him. Supposedly out of the sight was out of his mind. But for Jungkook, out of the sight meant she occupied even more of his thoughts. Man, you look wrecked. She really got you, huh? Jungkook snapped out of his daze as he was still staring at her. Chuckling nervously, he ran a hand through his hair, trying to play it cool. What are you talking about? I was just thinking about my new match. His friend exchanged knowing glances, barely suppressing their grins at his obvious distraction. Sure, man, your next match. We all know the match has curly hair and a smirk that can knock you out better than any opponent in the match. Just drop it, okay? He said annoyedly, placing the phone in his pocket as he walked away from there. Hey, that was my mobile. Vian settled into her bed, ready for sleep. She slipped on her blindfold and hugged her pillow tightly to her chest. Just as she began to drift towards the sleep, she was disturbed by a rustling sound. Her body tensed as she was about to remove the blindfold. She felt a hand press against her mouth, silencing her protest. Another hand secured her wrist, but firmly, the grip assertive but careful not to hurt her, pinning them gently above her head. The body beside her was warm, pressing close enough that she could feel every breath on her neck, stirring strand of her hair and sending shiver down her spine. Jungkook, she stammered, her voice muffled against his hand. He whispered directly into her ear. His breath was warm, and she could almost detect the faint scent of his cologne. A smile that she didn't realize she do become so familiar with. She began to relax under his touch. What are you doing here? The hand on her mouth shifted slightly, knowing she wanted to scream now. I don't know. What kind of reason is that? He didn't reply. She tried to free her wrist, though she was not applying much force to it. At least, let me remove my blindfold. He only chuckled. Even through the blindfold, she could sense his proximity. No, keep it on. It makes things more interesting. Her heart fluttered. You are enjoying this, aren't you? Maybe I am, he replied without any hint of shame. You are not allowed in this room, you know. He hummed. His breath was warm on her neck as he leaned closer, his lips just grazing her skin, making her acutely aware of every point where their bodies touched. She chuckled, halting his movement. Ah, I get it now. Couldn't stay away from me any longer, could you? Such a tease, so full of yourself. He muttered under his breath, more of himself than to her, amused how she has still ability to maintain control over the situation, despite her vulnerable position. Just say you love me, she giggled, but then there was complete silence. She almost thought he dozed off because he was not saying anything at all. She then lightly tried to tug her wrist out of his grasp, but it tightened more, indicating he was awake but not responding. Ryan? Can you trust me? He asked, his tone serious and a bit unsure. She tilted her head slightly. He can imagine if she could see him, she might have raised an eyebrow. Isn't it too ironic to ask when you're practically holding me hostage here? Maybe, but can you, just for a little while? I want to do something. She thought for a moment, not knowing what he is going to do, because his words were actually scaring her. Fine, but if this is another prank, I'm going to make you regret, she warned. He nodded his head obediently, completely in her trance. She expected everything, but what she didn't expect was his soft lips resting on the corner of her jaw, slow and deliberate, as if testing her reaction. He released one of her wrists, his hand slowly tracing a path down her arm, resting gently at her side. Is this okay? She was momentarily stunned. His behavior was so different from the Jungkook she knew, the one always ready to fight every moment. She almost thought he was possessed. Yeah? Who was she to say no to it? She waited and waited for his next move, but then she felt his lips brushing against her neck, sending a wave of goosebumps across her skin. She breathed deeply, the scent of his cologne silently granting him better access to her neck. He took advantage, his lips exploring her back neck, each kiss more assertive than the last. Her free hand found its way to his hair, fingers weaving through the black locks, pulling him closer. His nose brushed against the particularly sensitive spot. She giggled, instinctively curling up to shield her neck. He paused, pulling back slightly, but she giggled again when he attempted another kiss. No, that tickles. Her hands pushing against his chest lightly. His smile broadened at her reaction. Oh, that tickles, huh? He repeated teasingly. Seizing the opportunity, he began to tickle her more, his nose nuzzling against her neck and his hands finding her waist. She laughed out loud, the sound filling the room as he hovered over her, tickling her mercilessly. Stop, Jungkook, stop, she said, trying to wiggle away, but his weight hovered over her, keeping her pinned to the bed. If you don't stop, I will throw you out of the bed. He stopped his attack, chuckling a little as she hurriedly removed her blindfold, finally able to see him properly. She glared at him. I'm going to get back you for this. Just wait. A broad smile on his face as he waited for her to try to catch her breath. I do like to see you try. He lay back on his back, grinning up at the ceiling, feeling a warmth in his heart. Jungkook pushed open the library door, his eyes scanning the quiet room, while the student immersed in their book, spotting Van at the shelf, collecting books. He made his way towards her, a mischievous grin spreading across his face. Hi, sweetheart, miss me? He greeted aloud in quiet library, causing her to jump slightly. Startled, she turned around, glaring at him. What are you doing? You can't just shout in the library, she hissed, her eyes darting around to see if they had attracted any attention. What are you doing? He asked, ignoring her scolding, his gaze falling on the stack of books in her hand. I'm collecting some books, the teacher asked for. He rolled his eyes. It's the last day, Ryan. Are you still listening to teacher? She opened her mouth to respond, but Jungkook was already reaching out to take the books from her hands. Come with me. But I need to do this first. The teacher must be waiting. I called you Miss Goody Two Shoes for a reason. He removed his gauze. He draped it over it. He draped it carefully around her ribs, knotting the sleeves. She stared at him in confusion. Before she could process, he went down and hoisted her effortlessly over his shoulder like a sack of potatoes. Hey, what are you doing? She exclaimed as she found her waving the world ups and down. I don't have much time to waste, and you were wasting my time. Jungkook, put me down this instant, she said half-heartedly, hitting his back, aware that his antics always drew attention, not that he cared much about blending in. There were soft gasps, muffled giggles, and other students who witnessed the scene. She buried her face deeper against Jungkook, her cheeks burning with embarrassment, as she was one of the teachers looking their way as he was making his way out of the hallway. The teacher shook his head and continued on his way, muttering, "Curse these days." Jungkook laughed softly, pleased with himself as he finally stepped out of the side. Ah, finally we are free, he shouted as she wished she could just melt into the ground and never come out of it. He strode confidently to the car parked near the school entrance. Opening the passenger door, he placed it on the seat. It somewhat exaggerated bow. She settled into the seat. She noticed the car was not the one he usually drove. It was slicker, obviously more expensive, and definitely not his usual style. You steal your dad's car? She exclaimed. The last thing they needed was another reason for Mr. June to ground them. Both, again. He slid into the driver with a mysterious grin, clearly pleased with the reaction. Buttered it. He knows, kind of. Kind of? Jungkook, if we get caught, I'm not taking the fall for you. Relax, sweetie. He said I could use it for a special occasion. I figured this count as one, right? Yeah, whatever you say. The car rolled to a stop at the secluded spot on that Van didn't recognize. There was no one in the sight as far as she looked. They both got out of the car as she narrowed her eyes when they saw the lake and trees. Do you plan on killing me and dumping me in that lake afterward? My old self might consider it. Van stared at him with wide eyes as he chuckled, grabbing the rat as he guided her more into the deeper place. Before them, nestled under the soft shadows of the trees, was a small setup that looked straight out of romantic movies. Two comfortable chairs faced the lake, flanked by a small table adorned with assortment of food, from sandwiches and fruit to a bottle of wine and two glasses. Her mouth dropped open slightly as she took in the sight, a soft wow speaking her lips. Didn't expect that, right? Actually, no. Where did you even find such a place? Kind of stumbled upon it while back. Thought it to be a good place. Beautiful, he smiled widely as he stared at her for a moment before poking his arm. He turned his head towards her. Are you sure you're the same Jungkook, the one I knew? You didn't kill him, right? He jiggled. Then turned back to pour her a glass of wine. He handed her the glass. You need to figure that out on your own. She shook her head, her lips curling into a smile. She accepted the glass, her eyes never leaving his. I'm watching, just in case, you know. She took a sip from that glass. I just took whatever wine I got my hands on. Dad usually locked it in cabinet. I see why Dad locked it up. You steal everything. His everything is mine anyway. Perks of being the only son, he said while flicking his hair, and she shook her head. Should I be worried about what else might you have taken away?